and it should have us the live symbol. There it is. We are hitting that live stream. I'm Chris Trammell of Chris Trammell Coaching and Launch Your Life's Work in the Author Launchpad. I am so excited and grateful to have a special guest with us today, because in my passion of really sharing that light that each and every individual has, that brings it out to the world and sets others free to shine their light, Jon Block is an extraordinary human being. You're going to hear about him in just a minute, and his light lights up arenas. He has spoken on so many different stages. He is a student and leader inside of transformational work. He's had his own coaching company, transformational speaking company, where he rose rapidly into the six figures. He's been hired by national businesses to lead their workshops, launches, produces, and has programmed large conscious events. What else, Jon? I know there's so many things that I'm probably skipping over, but what else, Jon, would you like people to know about you as an introduction right now?
Well, I love that you highlighted student, because that is my core value, being a student first. You know, there's that stuffy academia model, and we have the equivalent in the coaching industry where people who say, oh, I know that already. That is death to growth and connection, which are my two highest values, growth and connection. So being a perpetual student first, and the world of communication is boundless. The whole onion metaphor truly applies here. There's so much growth and connection to be had in the way of communication. That's why I made it my life's journey.
I love that. Thank you. You know, and where I really get to, so everybody who's going to watch this afternoon, you're going to watch it in replay, you got to see that Jon and I are going to be playing tennis. We're going to be dancing the communication tango in this conversation, because he's going to say something that ignites something over here, and I'm going to say something that ignites something over there. So when Jon said student, how I was most impressed and remember that moment is I did a workshop with Marianne Williamson at one time, and I asked her to sign one of my books on the principles of A Course in Miracles, and she wrote From One Student to Another. Now, this was somebody who I completely handed over my personal development to for years. And her message to me was from one student to another. And the way you just captured that again, Jon, illustrates how the leader, the real good leader, is just going to lock arm to arm with you as you go through the haunted house of life sometimes, and not be, you know, this person that you don't have access to, but they're shoulder to shoulder with you. And I really thank you for that. Why the student part? Let's just, before we go back on, why the student leader that you are, Jon?
I love that story about Marianne Williamson. She's actually one of the people that we illustrate at Masterful Communicator events that we're doing next week as an example of what makes her a Masterful Communicator, and sharing about her journey with Return to Love, and then how she navigated her presidential campaign. And I'll be showing specific instances of that. For me, the humility, Jay Shetty has a quote I like. The purpose of life is to deconstruct the ego. We were to say that simple, right? The journey is a deconstruction of the ego. Well, how do we counter the ego? What are our tools in the toolkit? Sometimes you have to bludgeon the ego. What's it going to take? We have love, we have curiosity, we have humility. These are the tools that are available to us at any time. Now, whether we choose to use them or not is up to us. And the ego can be an incredibly forceful bouncer stopping us from getting to those tools. However, it's a bouncer that we can always get past. Doesn't stand a chance ultimately, especially with the force of love, which was what would compel us to call forth the tool of love, curiosity, humility. I would say humility in particular is valuable, because you can only be a student when there's humility in place. This acknowledgement of, I don't know at all. And it's one of those things that I'm so committed in my own masterful communication. How do you turn someone humble when their default is ego? You can
Mm.
have humbling experiences like a life-threatening illness, the loss of a loved one, losing your job. These are humbling experiences. Yet, what if we didn't have to wait for those? What if we could just activate humility? And it does stem from being really vigilant about catching the ego, knowing the repercussions of staying in the ego, and saying, that's not acceptable. I choose humility.
Wow. All right. So let's help anybody out who's going to be watching this, because I see you and I will go from on ramp to fast lane like that and hope that people keep up with us. In terms of what you just said, you used a really beautiful illustration, which is that we don't always need that proverbial come to Jesus moment to get present to what's not working, which is usually the domain of the ego, which has had us in areas of life that aren't working. And you're inviting us to access a better way of communicating, a better way of living without having to butt up and be at the effect of the ego. Now, the ego is this abstract thing, but we know it has a presence in our lives. How have you learned to tame the ego so that your highest light and purpose can come out, Jon?
The number one most important thing is to have a stand or a vision. I've studied successful people. I was a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan growing up in the 80s. And as I got into self-development, I started listening to him a lot. And Arnold shares a lot on YouTube about his journey. And he shares about how when he was 16, seeing Steve Reeves play Hercules and then become a movie star, making that transition from bodybuilder to movie star, that was his roadmap. And he based his life on that because he had a vision for himself to become world champion bodybuilder, most successful actor of all time. And he achieved those because he had a vision. Now, in a very, you might say, self-oriented, I wouldn't say self-absorbed, but the focus is on self. What do I want to achieve? What is the vision for my life? That is a great example of someone who had a vision and followed through on it. What we're talking about, though, is next level.
Yeah.
Where it's a vision for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
This is Martin Luther King. I have a dream that we will each be judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character, right?
Wow.
Spiritual terms, who we're being is what
Yeah.
matters. Right? So to each have a vision, we've been so blessed with these masterful communicators of the past. Martin Luther King, who was inspired by Gandhi, personal hero of mine. Nelson Mandela, who went from being so us versus them, which got him thrown into jail, to then having this spiritual awakening across 27 years of prison, which he was mentored by Desmond Tutu, and got introduced to this concept of Ubuntu, which is very central to my life and to Masterful Communicator. A person is only a person through other persons. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Wow. This is having a vision for humanity. So if we have that vision that we're committed to, well, it dictates how every single interaction goes that we have every single day, online and offline, from how we order our coffee to how we comment on someone's Facebook post, to our deep relationships with our parents, with our spouses, with our kids. It carries over where we get to check ourselves. Oh, is this aligning with my vision for humanity? And if someone is unclear the vision for humanity, what you have, just go with love and unity. What would it be like for everyone to have this experience of love and unity? And then ask yourself in this interaction, is this present? There will be times when it is not present. And no, we can't just bank on previous loving experiences with our spouse or whomever and say, don't you know I love you? Like, no, love is a present moment experience. So in that moment, there is not love being experienced. We get to recognize that and say, well, I'm committed to love on the planet. Then I get to recognize this is not what's happening, and I get to put love back in.
Packed in a whole weekend seminar into what you just shared right there, Jon. That was extraordinary. So what I captured, I'm also putting some of this back into the chat. I really love that Arnold Schwarzenegger, because we never know who some of our heroes, who some of our icons and influences are. You spoke about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, the vision for humanity, which is have a vision for self, right? Like my vision for self is what has me transcend the nonsense of the ego, that barking chihuahua in our ear that tells us all the diminishing things about ourselves. But when we have a vision that pulls us forward, we get to go beyond it. And then love and unity is the baseline and is the context for communication. I think that's an extraordinary statement, John. I can't
Yes.
thank you enough for that.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that most people have these two energies, the vision for self and the vision for humanity. They're doing some kind of blending of the two, which works and doesn't work depending on the person. One thing that we see a lot in the coaching industry is that someone gets into it because they have a vision for humanity, and they might recognize that there's a lot of money to be made. And they have a certain vision for self, let's say, to buy a home, buy a really nice home.
Yeah.
And there is zero judgment about it if that's what someone's vision is. Now, what can happen is, I remember going to an event. It was a high level 6 and 7 figure speakers and coaches. And I felt like, wow, I'm lucky to be in this.
Right.
It was in the first year or two of my speaking and coaching practice. And I was really excited to go there because I felt, well, the more money you make, the more spiritual you must be. Like your spirituality is a reflection of how wealthy you are. And I'm thinking like, oh, these are like the Eckhart Tolles and the Wayne Dyers, right? Like they're doing really well financially and they're really spiritual.
Right.
When I got there, though, it was a much different reality where the conversations were not about evolving, shedding the ego, catching yourself where you might be too attached to money and someone saying yes. Instead, it was all about the money. It was about how to increase conversions online, Facebook ads that work. It was about how to get butts in seats, which is a phrase I abhor then and now. And I saw firsthand like, oh, we're all human. This is the ego gets sneakier and more insidious the higher up you climb. It just comes up with other techniques and that you may not have had to deal with before. And I think it becomes a blind spot for people because ostensibly their business has a vision for humanity. It says so on their website, right? Therefore, it must be true that you're here to unify humanity. Yet people don't pause to check themselves. Like, okay, what is my own self? Is this aligning with the vision of humanity? If I'm committed to say love and unity, is every person expressing or experiencing this? And it's something that a lot of leaders forget to do.
You have set up a beautiful runway to start talking about our messaging, our personal messaging in our outward facing marketing, and how there's a way of doing that authentically, that is from the heart, that is from contribution, that is from love, and not isn't just part of the monster machine of marketing, of pour money in it, pour money into it, pour money into it, because that completely removes us from the connectedness that we get to have with people. And that's really what people are buying from us, is they want to be connected. They want to be seen. They want to be loved. They want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged, and they want to know they're safe. And the last one is value, right? And when we could give that to others through conferences like yourself, through high-level talks like your programs, then you don't need to do all those dancing metrics and doing all the ill-served clickbait pain point type marketing. And I really want to acknowledge you for sharing that, because you would think in a group or a conference of high-level thought leaders on consciousness, that would be what they are staking their flag in the ground and saying, how do we promote this more, rather than how do we drive seats, sales, clicks, conversions, which I get is part of business, right? Like you got to know some of that, but it can't be the only thing you focus on.
Yeah, I mean, let's say it was a conference of doctors. There's two ways you could approach it, just broadly speaking. One is that you want to help the doctors grow their individual practices as profitably as possible. That could be one focus of the conference. The other focus of the conference is recognizing we have these incredibly gifted healers. How do we eradicate disease from the planet? Right? So, two very different conferences.
Yeah.
Eradicating disease from the planet is a vision for humanity. And you're
Wow.
calling forth people to activate that and be a part of something that could really alter the course of human history. Now, with helping individuals become as profitable as possible, that, frankly, as our culture is right now, will more than often than not get more people to attend and get more people to buy. And the person who's putting on this expensive conference, it's a lot of work. In case you haven't done 3-day conferences, it's a lot of work and a lot of expenses. Their best shot at having a profitable, sustainable venture would be marketing that particular way. Help your doctors make more money. And that's a critical moment that I found myself in, is like, what kind of conference am I putting on? And it's something I've checked within myself, where I would be really misaligned if I were to be saying to this community, I can help you make as much money as possible, versus having a shared vision for humanity. I'm not convinced that more profitable doctors makes the world a better place. I'm just not.
Wow.
Right? I am convinced that doctors banding together to eradicate disease from the planet does make the world a better place.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. All right. I'm going to bring us into a couple of questions to make sure that people could hear the question responseness, and that you've shared tons of gold, and now I want to make sure that they're able to access the gold. So here's my first question, because I really get that having a vision for humanity was a process to arrive at that statement. So my question for you is, how did you create yourself as this masterful communicator? What was that journey to where my vision for humanity is what continues to drive Jon Block forward in the world? So tell us maybe a little bit of origin story. What was that? What was that like? Because sometimes people just see somebody show up on stage, they don't get to see the journey that brought them there. So what was that like for you?
Absolutely. So my vision for humanity is making masterful communication the standard on the planet. So broadly speaking, I'll share my own journey. But first off, if you might be wondering, if you're watching this, what's my vision for humanity? How do I arrive at that? When you start off, it's kind of like when someone is starting to play the guitar, you try to play like someone else. You do like covers, or you sing like someone else, try to emulate them. And then that's probably a better example. You find your voice as you go along. So then you can use, as I did when I did a seminar, I was introduced to the Buckminster Fuller quote. This is actually the context for a landmark, was creating a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out. And I got activated when I heard that and said, yes, that's what I'm committed to. And there's some people who believe in that and might go to work for a landmark. Myself, I don't do well in the authority structures, having a boss and all that. I had to create my own thing to really be fulfilled. And that's
I got a little rebel in me too.
Right. Like, I'm a lousy employee. One reason, like after I was training for HBO and Google, and just like, especially that Google one, I'm like, okay, I don't really like trying to do things the Google way. And, like, I better just do my own like open seminars and just like call on the right people who just like dig the approach that we have here. So to answer your question about my own journey with communication, I was at a real breaking point. I was really in debt. This was my late 20s, and I was borrowing money from my parents to rent groceries to stay alive, and noticing that my relationships were disastrous. I was putting on music and arts festivals. I've always been a big community organizer. Going back to parties in high school, right, where I blend all the different cliques together who otherwise would never meet, and it was such a joyful thing. Just like, oh look, there they are on Monday having lunch together. That's because of my party.
Right, that's great.
So I was doing the events though, and while people were showing up, I found that volunteers, that was my first piece of feedback, were not returning. And I was oftentimes really irritated with them for flaking or for just not doing a good job, like slacking off when they're there. Now, these volunteers were kind enough to give their time, like for my
Right.
event. And I saw how some of those volunteers were giving me feedback. The ones that I really appreciate are the ones who said, well, Jon, you didn't tell us what to do. You didn't even tell us, what time to show up exactly. And I started being more responsible for my own communication. I also saw that there was no vision I had for humanity. It's like, I'll just do one event at a time. Like, this excites me. I'll do a fashion and art show at La Jolla Playhouse, or I'll do a rooftop CD release show back when CDs release shows were a big thing, and just work with a band to promote their CD release show and put it on for them. So there wasn't this real stand for humanity. And I noticed that fundamentally, though, that my communication, I was doing a lot of projecting, controlling. So projecting as in, oh, if I say this, they're going to think that, or I know what they're going to do, or I know people project on big scales. Hollywood is just so blah, 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 or Russia is so blah, blah, blah.
Right.
People do these vapid generalizations so much, they actually think of it as fact, because they'll get some what we call agreement reality. Others say, yeah, Russia is that way. Oh, well, you think Hollywood is rough? Let me tell you my horror story with it. And then people will have the projection about it that totally stunts our growth and connection. Like, maybe there is some magic to be had there if you just put aside this projection. Controlling was a big one. I recognized in myself that I wanted people to be different, to think different, to act different, basically fit inside the box that I prepared called acceptable human behavior. And if they did not fit into the acceptable human behavior box of Jon Block, we were going to have problems. And it was my job, not unlike a bouncer, to keep them in line. And I justified it as, this is a contribution to you. How you don't cover your mouth when you yawn, for instance, it's a contribution to you to be pointed out. Just stuff like that. And just seeing the breakdown in connection. I heard a quote that really touched me, which is, the quality of our life is the quality of our relationships, and the quality of our
Oh,
relationships is the quality of our communication. So one can deduce quite easily that there's any one skill worth working on in life, it's our communication. Finances not working, work on your communication. Health not working, work on your communication. Romance not working, work on your communication. Every area of life stems from communication. A lot of that is internal. Like, how are you speaking to yourself, having a vision for some area of life, and then communicating, getting people on board.
wow. And through that awareness, continuing to chip away at the stone is what has created the Jon Block in front of us today, then, who is centered on masterful communication and really a vision for humanity, having a vision for humanity through masterful communication, because you saw where you worked. And it's kind of like that adage, we teach what we needed to heal and we teach what we needed to learn, right?
Yes, it's been the single most transformational thing in my entire life by far, is declaring I'm going to master communication. And I don't relate to myself as the greatest communicator of all time. That's not the point. Even that would
Right.
be like, that's an ego title thing. Who cares, right? I would say that I've attained a certain mastery in being able to connect with people, to recognize when connection is missing, and to know what to do in those situations to restore the connection. I know how to put people at ease right away. I know how to leave people inspired and feeling amazing. These are some of the things that we'll be covering at the 3-day event. And being a student first, it goes back to that. I would say, to whatever degree I've attained some mastery, it comes from being a relentless student first of communication. And I would say, unless you can say that about yourself, then you probably would gain some things from being at the seminar. Like, if you're already a relentless student first, you probably gain a lot from being in the seminar too, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know or prior to us going live, I asked maybe we should kind of structure out what is communication. However, I think you just illustrated it right there. Ultimately, is the ability to connect, right? Like the ability to connect. Can you hear the other person? You know, oftentimes, as you talk about some of those pain points of your journey, people would tell me, "You're not listening." And I was like, I could hear what you're saying as a sensory mechanism, but there was no connection. I would not allow myself to connect to the emotional state of the other person. And I couldn't get when I was either hurting them, I couldn't get when I needed to hear something over here. I was so about the two things that have driven me in life as we talk about what we teach, what we needed to heal, is one, really being a coach, advocate, supporter for other people's success. But in doing that, I didn't develop my own levels of personal success to keep up with it. I could get other people out into the world super successfully and have their podium moments in life and walk across stages and be seen and heard, but left to myself outside of my zones of mastery. Oh, I was three tires that were flat and trying to travel down the road. It just did not work. So I really appreciate the distilling you did of communication. Is how well are you connecting, and are you leaving people with clarity so that they know what action they should take that achieves an outcome that we're both committed to?
Yes. Here's some tenets of masterful communication. One is being able to inspire audiences into action. So this is in a public speaking arena. Can you inspire audiences into action? And it's worth noting the into action part. A lot of communicators can inspire audiences, leave them feeling good, come up to them afterwards. Oh, that's so great. It's next level to get people to sign up, whatever it is that you're offering. So that's what we'll be diving into, one of the things at Masterful Communicator. Being able to speak your truth with love, and the emphasis there is with love always. One thing we're out to disrupt, Chris, is believing that speaking your truth is the high point of communication. It's not. You're about
It's
halfway there.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. And in this social media age where anybody with an opinion can be like this op-ed like reporter basically and just say like, this is what I have to say about this topic. And there is this progression from what we call level 1, which is to suppress your communication, now to level 2, which is to express your communication. The progression that we're committed to is to go from level 2's express to level 3, which we call unify. And that is speaking truth with love. And love, use the "you're not listening" example, which I love. I love when someone's in a situation like this of "you're not listening," because it's a record player screecher moment. Is like when that happens where someone says "you're not listening," it's time to stop right away and really recalibrate. If the person is having the experience of not being heard because of the commitment to humanity, this would be inside of loving people. That includes them being heard fully. Then you get to explore, what would it take for this person to feel heard? So it would be pausing our own righteousness, our own track of like, what is the point I'm trying to make? Who cares in that moment? It's got zero relevance in that moment. Put it aside. Repeat back to them what you're hearing, asking, like, did I get it now? Right? This usually will address the "you're not listening" thing. And we don't get to run over this one when you have a vision for humanity that you're really committed to. So speaking your truth with love always is a tenet of masterful communication. Another is being aligned with your core values and creating unity with every single interaction. So your own core values, your vision for self, is that aligned with your vision for humanity? So how you're showing up in every interaction you have, does this support your vision for humanity? If you can say yes, That's masterful communication. And a fourth one is being humble enough to always keep learning and growing your communication. And we talked about coaches and certain people in academia. It's something I've noticed, frankly, in the spiritual community here in San Diego. There is an ego that kicks in, and people want to be seen as an expert, and I get it. Yet at the same time, the humility gets lost, and I would say their ultimate impact, like becoming somebody like Marianne Williamson, I would assert that the reason we're talking about her now, why Nelson Mandela quoted her in his inauguration speech, I mean, hello, talk about impact in the world,
Right.
is because she's remained a student first.
Yeah.
Right. We remember that Kobe Bryant remained a student first of basketball. That's why he became Kobe Bryant.
Wow. Wow, Jon. Thank you for sharing those tenets. I captured some of those shares in not in the Zoom chat, but on the Facebook where people are also watching there. And I wanted it because, Jon, you're like a spindle of gold right now, and I'm trying to catch it as fast as I can. So I'm going to ask you a couple other questions here. You just shared what are some of the core pillars. You must have read my mind because I was going to ask what are some of the core pillars or tenets of masterful communication. Let me ask you this one: to contribute to those who are in their early stages of business, they're in their early stages of being a speaker. I work with a lot of early stage nonfiction authors, people who are taking their message out to the world and trying to communicate it in such a way that it moves an audience to say, I want to work with you. You're my person. So let me ask you this. What Jon Block practices or habits have you noticed move the needle forward for you in building audience, generating revenue? Like, what are some of the Jon's habits and practices that someone else could say, I could do that. I could do what Jon just said to do. Tell me some of those things that make a difference for you.
One reason I'm so excited to have you be presenting at the event, specifically around online presence, is that it is an area of mine that I don't naturally gravitate towards. Hence, I haven't had the passion to master it up until now, still finding my lane regarding online. So the best answer I can give would be an offline one, and that would be one-on-one conversations. Yeah. Really master the one-on-one conversation. There is an epidemic of sorts of people not only not mastering, not recognizing the value of mastering the one-on-one conversation because they're spending so much time on their devices. One of the things that bothers me. So I'll see if I can answer your question this way. The things that have been relationship killers for me, just noticing like what triggers me, what makes me lose a sense of affinity or connection with this person and hence not want to work with this person, is a great indicator of what I should be doing. Like do the opposite basically of what this person is doing. And I believe that a lot. Like if you want to open a restaurant, notice what pisses you off when you go to restaurants, and that list that you make up, do the opposite. That's what's going to go into your restaurant, and your restaurant's probably going to be pretty good, right?
Absolutely.
So you can start with that. For me, and because like this is where the ego actually has a purpose, it can actually serve us because the ego comparing, assessing, judging, and all that, it can actually open the door to you creating something that really serves people and it calls out your highest self. So for me, it's I'll give a specific example. If I call somebody and they text me back. If I am calling you, it's because I want to have a live conversation. If I wanted to text you, I wanted to text you. If I wanted that back and forth, I would have texted you. So the message being sent to me is, I'm not important enough for you to call me back. You don't care enough about the relationship. Now, there are other interpretations. I'm just telling you my raw knee-jerk reaction when that happens. And I might have to expend more of my energy saying, this is what I want to talk to you about. I think it'd be better suited for a live phone call because it's more of a creation type thing. Like, I would not call someone to say, what time you want to meet for lunch on Thursday? Like, no, that's a text conversation. There's something that's come up that I want to clear with this person.
Right.
And their unwillingness to have the phone call with me has reminded me of how important it is to have really strong one-on-one conversations with people. Again, the quality of our life is the quality of our relationships. The quality of our relationships is the quality of our conversations. Which is a higher quality conversation, a text one or a phone call? Obviously, the phone call will produce higher quality relationships and a higher quality life. The reason this played out to your question in business growth, revenue generation, is that whom are you going to look to attend your events, to promote your events, to advocate for you? It's
Yeah.
entirely on the strength of your relationships. It's true in Hollywood. It's true in the seminar industry. I can't think of an industry in which it's not true, uh, especially in the creative speaking, like service-based business that we're in.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it is absolutely the strength of our relationships. Those only get strengthened in accordance with how many quality one-on-one conversations you've had.
Wow. Thank you for that. That really helps to dispel where a lot of, I know as I work with new entrepreneurs, they're always wondering, how do I get more audience, more followers? And one of the things that I remember learning when I did sales and marketing for Nike and Under Armour was I was always told, like, go be masterful in your backyard, which meant face to face, hand to hand, eye to eye, heart to heart conversations about what people needed and the solutions that you're able to provide and the commitment and promise that you had for their success. And that could only really be felt in person or well practiced here during Zoom. I think a lot of people now with the new virtual world, this counts as a conversation now. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's not the same. You're absolutely right. It's not the same. There's not the energetics. However, you can commit, you can deliver and commit to love and acknowledgement and appreciation through this platform. And it really has allowed us to expand around the world and
Yes.
really connect ourselves uniquely that wasn't there before. So I really do agree, John. When I trained with Tony Robbins for the coaching community there, one of the things was meet people and match them where they're at. So if someone's going to send you a text, then it's appropriate to reply back as text. But that was new. If someone calls me, the appropriate text could be, I will call you back later. Thanks for calling. But you make sure that it's word to word, energy to energy. Don't try and take it over text, because then you always get what's going to be. The ego then will add the tone, the energy, the what are you saying, and just get that handled by picking up the phone and talk to someone else. That's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that I just totally lost it in the moment. It was like right there for me, and then you gave the phone call text add-on to that. So yeah, I love what you said about the backyard and bringing that back, and this notion of like old-fashioned is something that people are dismissive of, to which I say, well, then call it what's worked in the past. Look at what's worked in the past and then analyze why it worked. And one could say that trust is something that's perhaps always been missing by default with people. There's like that stranger danger thing that we're all growing up with, which is perhaps louder now than most people. And because of all the online hype and people giving their money to things and feeling taken advantage of, one might say that putting in trust is even more important now. The way you create trust is by eye to eye, face to face, right? There's no place to hide. You can really feel that person the most. Oh, here's what I wanted to say. In terms of building up business, one gift to the marketplace right now, if you are a thought leader, is that you can create a podcast, and any person of influence, you have a reason to reach out to them and ask them to be a guest on your podcast. I did this when I was growing my business initially, where I would host a monthly event. And because I recognized that I could get more people if I got some bigger name speakers to come to the event as basically a co-presenter with me, that it would provide variety every single month and get more people there. So
Yeah.
I reached out to the biggest names I could in San Diego, and who I had some indirect relationship with. Like, I go to some big conference where they're speaking in front of 300 people, and I go right up to them and I say, would you like to be a speaker at my event? And the answer is some version of a yes, like getting more information. There's a door opened that wasn't
Right.
there before. So having a platform of some kind, nowadays, having a podcast is the easiest thing, having some structure where you're accountable, as I was every month doing a live event.
Yeah.
I'm an in-person guy, so that's why I did it that way. Nowadays, if you wanted to do a podcast from anywhere, say every week, you got your podcast and you have these spots to fill, and now you have a relationship with someone. Even if you end up scheduling them for 8 months out, you have a relationship with them that you didn't have before, and you're providing value of some kind. One of the more obnoxious things you can say to someone who is a person of influence is, can we get together so I can pick your brain?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it reminds me of Hannibal Lecter picking someone's brain.
Ah!
Don't tell people you're going to pick their brain.
Well, I wasn't going the cannibal route with it, though I did enjoy that. It's the taker energy. Like, I want to pick your brain so I can get something for myself. And I would get this from people. Like, they want to get together with me and pick my brain. And I'm like, and what else? Right? Like, there's something key missing here. Like, and I'm not wanting to say, like, what do I gain by it? So I have an issue with being too coarse or overly direct for certain people. So it's one of my areas I'm aware of. Being a masterful communicator means recognizing your patterns that don't work. And so that's one of my patterns doesn't work with certain people. Other people, like when I travel to New York, not an issue. San Diego Bay Area, more of an issue. So my saying, like, what do I gain by this? Even that's what I'm thinking, like, doesn't work. And it was just more as like a recognition of, this person is probably not someone who I would have any kind of peer-to-peer relationship with or eagerly refer. There's so many ways in which people shoot themselves in the ass, basically, like right out of the starting gate. And I think it's really important as masterful communicators to recognize what those patterns are. We all got them in some way or other. Maybe we make people uncomfortable initially, and our default could be, this is getting back to the level 2 express. This is who I am. If people can't take it, that's on them. I'm not going to compromise who I am. And as if I'm saying to them, sell out, dilute yourself, I'm going to pour a bucket on your fire, right? Like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
It's yes, and like, yes, this is how you express yourself. And what if you added this approach of making people more comfortable, and so that they can relax and truly express themselves around you? I mean, you are committed to that. Don't you want people to express themselves as opposed to feeling withdrawn and shut down in your presence? Probably. I don't think people consciously want that. So what would it take to bring out that part of them?
Boy, I'm so glad you touched on that. You've touched on some very important parts there. You know, the rookie mistake is, can I pick your brain? Because we hear it so often. It's like, you'll hear low-hanging fruit is another one. And it's just the phrases that we hear inside of the business world. People aren't low-hanging fruit. They are launch ready. They are ready to take action, but they're not low-hanging fruit, nor is someone that you would like to talk to a brain to be picked. It's, can I have a conversation with you? I'm really inspired by the work you've done, and I'd love to ask you some questions. And it's just that change in phrasing that has someone feel seen, right? Not like, oh, you're just coming to take from me. Like you said, I've never heard of it that way, the energy takers. And all the more reason, John, why a weekend event like Masterful Communication is needed, so that we could learn what are the tools of up-leveling our communication to get to a point in place where we could connect, be heard, move an audience, have our message exist in the world. So let me go ahead and you were about to say something. And then
I've got another one I'm dying to share. It's super quick.
Please.
Sure, I'll support you. So imagine you're doing an event, you have a campaign of some kind, something that you're really passionate about. And I've been getting this one like here and there, so it's more of my consciousness than usual. And someone says, sure, I'd love to come support you. What's the message that gets sent to me in that moment? I don't see any value to your training. You're someone who is helpless to some degree or needs support of some kind. Now, this person will deny, oh, no, that wasn't my intention. No. I get it wasn't your conscious intention, yet that expression itself of I'll come support you, it really is depositioning. One of the things that we have to do is relate to each other as experts, as valuable experts, whether it's paying to attend their events or just holding them high and seeing like you have extraordinary value. I learn from you every single time we talk. And in that space, I might come to your seminar. This cuts through a lot of that spiritual ego in the community that I've seen, and the humility, right? It brings that back in. So I've just noticed that as a relationship killer where someone says, I mean, it can be revived. It's not like a forever relationship killer, but like in the moment, it has made me feel cut off from someone when they said, I'll come support you. It's different if I'm saying, can you volunteer at the event? But as far as like showing up for something where you have some gifts to share, some transformation you're here to impart like to this person, and they're saying, I'll come support you, is very reductive and it diminishes the person and their gifts. So just being mindful of that one as well.
Wow. Jon, thank you for that. Again, those are advanced listenings that also then ask for advanced communication, right? Because we do by default want to support one another. So we say what's authentically there, and to the recipient, they may not hear it the way we mean with authenticity of like, yeah, I want to be this. They're like, well, yes, but can we up level our share?
Yeah, or it's a great opportunity like you are hosting an event and you invite someone to be a speaker on your stage or an exhibitor at your event, and you're coming from this context of how this is a win-win. Like I win, right. You win, the audience wins. And they say, sure, I'll come support you. Well, how does that make you feel about the value of what you're offering? It totally tanks it. So it's much more empowering to say, I love what you're up to. I'm thrilled to be part of it. Thank you so much for thinking of me. What does it look like? Right? And you get your further details from there. And you could add on like, I'm thrilled to support your event. That's
Jon,
like at the very end, maybe.
Thrilled to support your event. And I'm going to share it right now. So as we reach the final stretch of this, I'm going to put the link also in all of my ecosystem, but here we are, Masterful Communicator, where visionaries unite. It is a 3-day event in San Diego. If you go here to Jon's website, Jon, you want to tell them the website again, please?
It is masterfulcommunicator.net.
Masterfulcommunicator.net. It will take you to this registration page here where you have the opportunity to purchase the tickets, where it's going to be hosted at the Legacy Resort and Spa Hotel and Spa in San Diego. I can't wait to be there with everyone. More information about the event right here. Some very inspiring quotes. There you're going to have Jon up in front leading with a number of other guest speakers. And here are some of the other guest presenters, thought leaders, people who are really going to contribute to your growth and development.
Who's that stud?
I know. I am so fortunate to be able to be part of that group. Jon, I'm really like, thank you so much. Just some amazing topics that are going to be shared here. So please, if you have not already, please register for this. You'll have the opportunity to talk to Jon directly because he is talking to each and every participant and thought leader that's going to be co-presenting as part of Jon's thought leadership team on Masterful Communication. Is there anything else that I have? Well, I know there's tons, but is there anything else that you want to share either about the event or the difference with this vision for humanity that this event allows you to bring to the world that you'd like to share, Jon?
We are a people divided right now, whether it's in this country or it's globally, in some ways more connected through technology, internet, and on a human-to-human level, more disconnected. The way that we counter that is through in-person gatherings. And some people listening to this might have forgotten about the magic of in-person gatherings. You've been Zooming since 2020.
Yeah.
Yet what I can tell you is that unity happens with in-person gatherings. The most powerful growth of your life happens with in-person gatherings. I'm so committed to this. That's why, Chris, I am speaking with every single person one-on-one, because what I know, having done events since 2008, the more of a one-on-one relationship I have with each person, the more of a one-on-one relationship gets carried over between the people in the room. Right? There's a greater depth of recognition. If I know everyone's name about who they are, then that leads over directly into the room. And having 3 full days together, the relationships for life, people who will go to bat for you, whatever it takes, will go there with you, not having any idea where there is. That's the kind of relationships that get formed at these events. And quality of our life is the quality of our relationships. This is where it happens, especially when you have people there to work on communication. This is the best relationships that you can develop. So if you value this, having the quality life, the quality relationships, this is the place to be. I guarantee you'll see so much for yourself that's not working in your own communication. Will be on the court. You have certain relationships in your life that you'll actively workshop during the event. So we have exercises, role play. Well, there'll be some stretches and challenges for you as well. You will probably reach out to those people during those 3 days in ways that you might be confronted by. Yet if there ever is a time to be doing that, it's in the safe container like this. And I've never seen this go sideways, because of the container that we create at Masterful Communicator. So I do hope you'll join us. Admission is just $97 right now. And you go to masterfulcommunicator.net.
Ladies and gentlemen, every now and then you get gifted with somebody that enters into your life and you're just lucky to have met them and you just look forward to what's going to develop. That is Jon Block. I cannot thank you enough, Jon, for receiving my invitation to share about Masterful Communicator, because, I look at the gaps and dreams that I want to be able to have my own program, weekend conference about what is it to live your life work, and you're doing it. And I'm so inspired to be part of your life work in San Diego, November 4th through 6th, and really get, this is what I'm creating for myself. This is who I get to be for others. So I really thank you for joining today, Jon. I'm going to make sure that you have a copy of this as well. Share it with your audience. Share it with anybody who thinks they're on the fence. Should I or shouldn't I? If you're in San Diego, you're a thought leader, and you know that communication matters to you or to you and your teams to have something be in existence in the world, you want to be at Masterful Communicators with Jon Block next weekend. And with that, Jon, thank you so much. And everybody else, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thanks, Jon. Bye-bye. And I'm going to go ahead and stop